it's true that so much happens on the on sin levels of life that we can be dumbfounded if we really know. And in connection with the new song, many people, uh, especially the Africans, when they sing the new song, they expect some results in a particular direction. Uh, and when they don't get these, when they don't, even if they have experiences and they are not concretized or something like that, they think that the new song is not working. But I reckon that what happens on the unseen levels of life is huge with every individual. And so maybe people should be more patient with the new song when they do it, or to just have uh, that conviction. I don't want to call it faith, that something is happening for their own good, even if they don't know about it. So, what can you say about this, Jane?
Yes, and we'll go over this and over it as we fine tune things because it's very important. That's why I take the time with it because it is very important. It's become more so more of an endlessness than when Paul was here and earlier and everything we've gone through. The basic idea is that all of a sudden you've come to the point where you at least recognize the new you. Okay, the real guides on the real side have brought you to this point, and then now you have the outer recognition in some degree, some way, and so you start singing the new you. And I understand people are looking for because this is how they've been taught and geared, indoctrinated and conditioned that yes, you sing a so-called magical word, which this is not, but you do some incantations or whatever. It all applies kind of to these old ideas, and that things are going to happen just like they see in the movie. You know, abracadabra, and things happen. Well, this is in the real position of your real awareness and recognizing more so than just creation itself. And so, by the very fact you start doing the new you, and it just depends upon the individual because some individuals are very creative and self sufficient. It's different with each individual. But the basic idea here, the basic reality is that when you do the new you become more aware. And so, through that, all of a sudden, you might say, if you didn't know how to build a house before, and you take the time to do the new you and go through a real education on the real side and eventually filters through. Plus, you do something on the outer. You go to a school or you learn something from somebody somewhere. Uh, uh, the idea is that you are to recognize how to do this for yourself because you've made the choice to do that. You see, it's very simple. So it's not looking for the sea to part or the sky to open up and blessings fall, etc. All these things. The idea of blessings, again, that's a cliche. Everything already is, and you decide how you're going to recognize it. This is the best part. So, yeah, again, that expectation, you have to expect it from yourself. That's the part you expect from yourself. You decide how you're going to see this. The real guys can show you something, life can show you something, whatever, and it demonstrates all the time. It's always demonstrating itself because it already is everything, even in creation, everything. I have just created this idea of separation of creation and the real universe is actually there's no separation. but you need, for a while, a person needs to see the difference in comparison, you see. But there is no actual separation of it. It's just that we've been brought up, because just like the five bodies we have, we've been brought up to kind of push everything together into one ball. And this is where the misunderstanding comes. You have to pull it apart. It's kind of like if your radio isn't working and you try all these things, the knobs and everything. So what do? You start taking it apart to see what's going on inside, and finally you see that, oh, there's some loose wire or something. You start taking it apart with all the pieces to see what's going on. Why isn't it working? And so this is what we learn to do with ourselves in our way. We start to recognize each little part instead of just shoving it all together, kind of like in our car or our house, where you just start throwing things in there. Pretty soon we've just got all this stuff, and we can't even find the things we want most of the time. And my room's like that too. Most creative people are like that. They just got stuff around, and because they're always doing something. And so this is where eventually people rent warehouses. So yeah, to hold all their stuff, and then they go work there and forget their house, because again they've got they're so creative, etc. But that's the idea. We're in creation to better recognize this reality. At the same time, with the new you, it helps you become more aware. But again, it's up to the individual how they take advantage of it. So if they apply the old ideas of, let's say they came to religion, which most people have, because this is what the reptilians did. They created the religions for people to believe in something that it's a cute idea, but that's about it. And so if they're looking through that idea, thinking that that's going to work according to what life is, well, again, it may, I don't know, if something's available so in other words, if a person wants to build a house, and they pray to God or whatever, they use the new you, and all of a sudden someone gives them a house. It's like, wow, the new you worked, or when I prayed to God it worked, etc. Well, again, if in creation, and where we're particularly at, if that's available, that can happen. And then all of a sudden they'll think, oh, gee, it was God, or it was the new you, etc. Well, I'll just keep new youing, and maybe more people will give me a house, you see. And so, but you come to the point where you recognize that's not how it is. There's a better part to it all, and we're just going through creation as the steps to recognize that. But in the meantime, because life is so huge and endless, yeah, it really takes a lot of endurance and tolerance to understand what's really taking place here. So that's why I write so much, to give as many viewpoints as I can, because it takes a lot. It's not just the little simple spiritual path. You just join up and, hey, we'll all have fun and we'll hug each other and we'll go listen to the master as he says his pretty words. Well, again, those were the babysitting days, and they still exist for most people. And then it looks like a criticism, but hey, the world is dying. You only have so much time. And then the school is gone here. Okay, now you got to figure out the next part, and you're going to probably carry a lot of trauma with you. So even if people are spiritual and enlightenment, and they know how to meditate and they know how to harmonize with things, well, most people have family relationships, children, etc., relatives. And when something big happens, like Fukushima or whatever, they're traumatized. So much for the harmony. You see, because they don't really have a true understanding of things. They have ideas that they live with, but thinking that, oh, well, if I harmonize, the rest of the world will harmonize too. You see, this is where many times, many of us think for others, and which we all do, because we're part of the collective here. So yes, it always gets into a bigger picture, doesn't it, Charles? And so, yeah, it's a step at a time, being realistic. And that's a toughie, because I know people have situations. We all do. We've created our situations, and it's a catch-22. We're victim of circumstances, you might say. I was told that uh, many times in the past, and we've created things. Now we come up to them, but at the same time, we've chosen to come into creation. We've chosen to go through this turbulence, and we have to figure it out according to the difficulty of dealing with ourselves, mainly, not the world. Then we have to deal with that too, but mainly ourselves, to figure out ourselves, etc. So, yeah, and now we come across the new you, and we start doing that. Well, of course, we've brought ourselves up a particular way. We've agreed to so much that we think is something, which is understandable. And this is where the patience, you might say, that is displayed by the real guides, because again, hey, they're in life too, and they're on their journey, like all of us. So again, you might say they must display that patience, because this is how life is. They're not going to disrupt anything, but at the same time, when you're first starting out, a lot of aberration has to uh, the individual has to understand the aberrations of themselves, and that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just that they need to take the time. But I know at the same time they're trying to physically survive. So it's kind of like if there's an air raid, and all of a sudden, everybody's running through the streets here and there to go wherever to get away from, okay, this event. Let's say an aerial attack or something like in World War II. Well, realistically, what would make a little bit more sense? Would it be to where everybody runs here and there and everybody's running around and they don't know what to do for the most part? And what would make more sense? So it's like how you are in Africa or here. What would make more sense? And what's made more sense with like Val and Kelsey coming here is to help support me while I do this, and we all support each other. See, that makes more sense. But most people, they want to, and I like living alone, and it was fine because I could just do what I'm doing. But at the same time, what makes more sense? And so, like I said, the Africans, yes, they are struggling. I see videos on them. We'll just use the Africans, and the world is struggling. The whole world is doing it. From animals being killed in the Amazon, deforesting, and whatever. It's going all over. What makes more sense? People have to decide to try it on their own, or get together and do something, and all live in the same house, etc. And so I saw this one movie this one time where, and Ava did it too. Her parents, they have a big house, and her parents, there was like 25 people there at one time. After the war, when she was very, very young. All these people, because there was no place to live or whatever it was. And so they all rented from her parents. And I saw this movie one time where this lady did that too, during World War II, because there were no places to go, or she was hiding some of the Jews or whatever. This is where, you have to make tough decisions. And so the new you is showing you how to become more aware. And sometimes, against your will, you just have to do these things. And it's been I've been here 11 years, a little over 11 years, and I have worked and focused on getting this funding for this as an example. And, I'm in the position, but still it's big for what I am doing. And it's actually become more than funding itself, which is great. I didn't even recognize this as I was going through this, but through the past several years, it's come to be so. So I've went through the steps, but it's been a heck of an endurance and a tolerance for me to keep doing this, etc., to stay focused with this and to bring this out at the same time. So, yeah, it's a lot. And so you creatively use examples for these people, because what have we seen? What do? They go back to the old ideas of religion or faith and belief or magic. They get one of the shamans or the witch doctors to do something hocus pocus for them. And then what do? They just get themselves in trouble again. And they're tap line with the reptilians. And pretty soon they're willing to be bought off, like a lot of people. That's why the world is like it is. That's why they created the monetary system, to buy off people so that they could have the control. And many people are willing to be bought off. They'll make you a millionaire. They'll give you all kinds of money to do this or that. It's quite obvious what's going on, and to help ruin the world so that it can be controlled. So again, yeah, a decision is made, and so the bigger part of life, the isness life is, the all that all life is, that's huge. And this is where we've come because we're in a position that, hey, it's do or die right now for people. And it's not that we die, the real awareness stays, but it becomes trapped and locked into the circumstances and the situations, just like if you were in school and it was World War II and they bombed the school, and all of a sudden everybody had to go into one room or the basement to be taught because the rest of the school is devastated. And this is the earth. This is one little place that is a school for individuals to come and learn and eventually wake up to the true reality life is. But in the meantime, while it's being destroyed, they're also taking on a whole lot of unnecessary ideas and viewpoints and being marketed and told things at the same time, especially with the 6 o'clock news and all that. You don't know what's going on. It sounds good, but where does it really lead? So, yes, to just start off, and again, this is where that's why you are there, Charles. That's why you are there, and Miriam in Africa is an example, and others, to bring this about, this understanding that now we're seeing the whole of life. And this is where the sun is a great example, simply because, how it shines everywhere, and to see a bigger picture than just chasing what the personal self wants, but a little at a time to see a bigger picture and have a better understanding. And yes, those ideas, those so-called fantasy ideas that come into an individual, many times they are shared insights from the unseen, but it's up to you to interpret that and how you see it and understand it, relay it, utilize it, etc. You see, because we're all in life, and it's up to us what we do. And so again, this is where we've come to this recognition more so. And so, the best identity we can use for people to graduate into this, the bigger picture, is the all-natural environment and the sun itself, to recognize what it is demonstrating. That's the easy way. That's the best way. And just to get into that point of understanding what's taking place from there, and then from there, you might say you leverage yourself into a greater awareness of recognizing how to perceive this reality. So, yeah, it's quite a course itself. But again, it's going to be different with each individual. And again, most people, they will do it for a little bit. They will get some experiences. Again, the experiences are the first part. It's really about your intent and what you decide and your focus, etc., and what you do. And so it's a lot. It really is. But, any decision can be made. But again, will the individual, are they willing to go through it to get to the next point? Look at these people that have come from different countries, how they took the risk. They all got in a boat. We've seen this, from different countries, if it's Africa or if it's from Cuba or whatever. They all got in this a big boat. I mean, you basically had to row it almost. Maybe it had a motor on it, but it was all open. And maybe there was 200 people in it. It was 30 feet long by 15 feet wide, and there'd be 200 people in it. They're all stuffed in it to get from their country to another one, and they took the risk to do that. This is where we're at. You have to take the risk to see this reality. But if you stay on the land and don't take the risk, then where are you? Then you have to deal with the situations there, don't you? So people can collectively get together. And those that have the courage to step up and do something, you see, And just like in the United States, the Africans, there are Africans that are doing very well financially, we'll just say, and they do all the selfies on the Facebook. I see them. And what do? They just take pictures of themselves. And is that going to equal something while the world and their friends and whatever are dying and struggling? You know, the Americans too, they're dying and struggling here too. Everybody's got cancers, etc. They're coming in with the 5G network. This is a reality. People will be fried. Are they paying attention to this?